Welcome to Crafty Sourcer. If you're looking for a raw, unfiltered podcast on all things sourcing in APAC, you've come to the right place. Grab a coffee or wine and join your host and other guests as we dive deep into the complex and ever-evolving world of sourcing, keeping you informed on insights, tools, and even at times, a healthy sourcing debate or two. Now, here's your host, Denise Pereira from Kaleidosource. Settle in and let's get crafty.
Hi, everyone. We are back with another episode. Our guest today is someone who is not afraid to speak her mind every now and then. A few months ago, she spoke at ATC around revolutionizing recruitment with generative AI, obviously the hot topic for the past year. And even after a year, it continues to be, the talk of the town, especially within talent acquisition and how we can really use it to make our lives a lot more easier. So let's get into it and let's get crafty. Olga Barrett, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Hi, Denise. Thanks so much for having me.
No, it's my pleasure, Olga. And you and I have known each other for quite a long time, and we run in the same Melbourne community over here. So it's my pleasure to have you on my podcast. So, Olga, before we get into our chat, quick intro for our listeners: who is Olga, and what is it about sourcing that you enjoy the most?
Right. Who am I? Well, I think, well, first of all, I'm the person who worked in sourcing, recruitment, and HR for much longer than I'm willing to admit. In fact, it's exactly half of my life. So I started back in 2000, back when sourcing actually was really hard. You would be actually browsing yellow pages and calling people and sometimes pretending to be someone else, call from taxation office if you want to hire an accountant, or trying to be sneaky around, I don't know, somebody's secretary. So once I even pretended to be a journalist to to hire someone in production. So it was like wild times. So of course, back in 2003, when LinkedIn was founded, and I think I got my profile at the end of 2004, 2005. It was super exciting because you don't really you don't have to actually stalk people in the streets anymore. You can do it online. So that was my introduction to sourcing. And now, I'm head of TA at EPAM Systems, and I look after the Eastern Asian Pacific region, which is fun.
Wow, so you pretended to be a journalist to get someone in production. So I guess this is a perfect example of when sourcing you have to be very, very creative, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Like you mentioned, you've been in the recruitment game for a while, and now you head up talent acquisition at EPAM, which also means you oversee a team of sourcers as well. With everything that you've seen and implemented so far in your career, what is sourcing to you, or rather what is the value that you know and see that it can bring into any organization?
Sure. Well, before I jump into it, I think I would just tell you a few words about the EPAM system, so it will be easier to understand where I come from. So EPAM is a software engineering company operating since 1993. We provide global digital transformation services, physical and digital product development, platform engineering services, like whatnot. And since 2009, till most probably recently, we have been growing at an immense pace. Like we're talking 24% by 24% each year. And be patient with me. I'm going to wake up. And and what's important that we were growing almost solely organically. Of course, there were like a few acquisitions here and there, but we were doing this through recruitment. So at some point, we will be like hiring like 2,500 people per month globally. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that we know how to do recruitment and do it a lot around the globe, and sourcing is a absolutely vital, essential part of what we do. In our region, for example, back in 2021, 2022, when we had to grow the region by 50%, while making sure that the quality of talent acquisition retains. And this whole endeavor doesn't cost us arm and leg. That's where I made a very conscious decision to strengthen our sourcing team and our marketing teams. And actually, that would help us to step away from party providers. Like, I mean, I love recruitment agencies, but they have their let's say their place in this whole ecosystem, and definitely no recruitment agency can replace strong and dedicated and qualified sourcing team. And besides engaging with candidates and bringing them in, sourcing also gives us heaps of important data: market capacity versus market penetration in different countries, trends with like real trends with salaries, what skills you might find in abundance in certain markets, and what skills are in deficit. So it's it's incredibly powerful tool, sourcing and people who do it.
I love that you are such a massive ambassador to fight for a function that sometimes not a lot of people understand the value of what it can bring. Um, I think having that equal seat at the table along with recruitment, like your point around the market trends, the market intel, working with marketing is so important these days. It's I when I worked at ANZX, we had to work with recruitment marketing. We actually had a dedicated recruitment marketing function, and it was brilliant because it really changed the narrative for who we were as sources, who we were as a function, but more importantly, who we were as a business to the external market. So it's really, really important to work hand in hand. Thanks so much for sharing that, Olga. Now, let's talk a little about artificial intelligence, right? So it's the buzzword. I think I use artificial intelligence more than I'm using Google these days. So we're obviously living in an era where AI is not just a futuristic concept, but it's a present reality.
Yeah.
It's obviously influencing various facets of our lives. Like I was saying, I tend to use Google less and I'm using ChatGPT a lot more, even if it's, when I was planning my trip to Europe, I was like, hey, help me write an itinerary for the next 5 days for Amsterdam. So stuff like that. As the head of TA at EPAM, with your recent talk at ATC, and I'm kind of bummed that I missed it because I was actually in Perth back then. How do you and your team, how have you all sort of driven that recent adoption of AI into your TA process? I'd love to know because there are a lot of companies TA teams rather, that want to do it but are afraid to do it or don't know how to do it. But you're already in the process of doing it. So I'd love to hear from your end.
Yeah, thanks, Denise. And first of all, I want to say that ATC was a blast, and I want to extend big thanks to Joe and Trevor and the whole ATC team and sponsors. I really thoroughly enjoyed these few days, and I think that we're so lucky that things like that happening in our community and in our industry. Yeah, so it was great. And yeah, Denise, thanks for the question. Look, naturally, as soon as the generative AI and ChatGPT and such became available, we explored different avenues, seeking how we can potentially utilize new technologies and get some, significant time / productivity benefits. And I know that in some companies, in some situations, TA tend to just to test it like one-on-one. Okay, so can the ChatGPT do this better than I? And it's always it's it's never a fair comparison, if you know what I mean. If we compare what ChatGPT does versus what this particular recruiter does, the recruiter would always think, yeah, I can do it better. So we decided to choose a different avenue. Basically, I went directly to the head of our business intelligence practice, and we spoke of how we can conduct a proper analysis and review on how we can leverage the large language models and intelligent automation to streamline what we do. So what we did, we carried a series of exploratory workshops and we actively engaged all the teams that sit under the TA umbrella. This is TA operations. We have a separate team, TA marketing, again, separate team, recruiters, and sourcing team. So, and at these workshops, basically, we did three major things. We analyzed processes end to end. We highlighted processes that provide the biggest impact, and we estimated the average handling time for them. And we identified 9 areas in TA that could be automated to an extent. So basically, how did we do it? It was a combination of how much time we allocate to this action, how complex or simple rules are that processing the information. So input, process, output. Yeah. So how difficult they are. And if inputs are digital and structured or manual. So as I said, we identified a few areas for automation, and the biggest impact in automation was sourcing and outreach. And we just ran with it. So we basically there was our CPO sponsored the project. We engaged business analysts, we engaged architects, we engaged developers. So it was just an internal project, and we developed a solution that we're still testing. So what this solution is doing, so basically it's a generative AI solution that helps to analyze the requisition. So it picks up the requisition from the ATS, and the LLM splits the job description into keywords and brings it to external sourcing platform where the CVs are screened, and then they start basically bringing these resumes for review to recruiter, who decides whether the candidate are worth reaching out or not for this particular role. And also this solution helps to, doesn't help, it does create an outreach message that is personalized because it's based on the candidate's CV and on the job description. Yeah, so it basically compares and creates message where reaching out to you because we need this and you have this, and hence here we are. However, again, it's a recruiter who decides whether the candidate that was brought by GenAI should be contacted. And of course, it's always an option to check with the candidates who've been rejected. And recruiters, being naturally very practical and very have this critical thinking. Yeah, so we work very hard on basically ensuring that the solution is tweaked. We collect feedback all the time. We get testing. We do benchmarking. So it's a process that consists of consistent, pardon the pun, sanity checks and getting back and checking what we do and if it's correct and if it's unbiased and if we are on the right path. So after we ran this, after we came with this idea, we actually ran a simulation. And that's an interesting part about AI. You don't have to invest a lot in automation. Like you have a hypothesis, for example. You don't have to build a whole framework, automation framework, because the availability of these tools actually allow you to check your hypothesis without massive investment. And I think this is very interesting. So what we did, okay, so the tool can do this. Yeah, how good the tool is. And what we did, we used what's called confusion matrix. Let's say there are 10 recruiters and a bot, and there are 30 resumes of candidates, real candidates, and there's a job description. And each and every recruiter goes through these 30 resumes and decide to themselves whether it's a go or no go, whether it's worth reaching out to this person or not. And the bot does the same. in this simulation framework. And then we compare each output of each recruiter to majority of recruiters, what majority of recruiters decided. And that's where we discovered that, and we were testing it in our region, that actually the bot was the second best in the decision making. Having said that, the results would be wildly different in different countries and for different roles. And we keep testing it. It's all R&D. It's not in production yet. We are testing it with heaps of practitioners across EPAM. We have, luckily, we have recruiters working in very different markets, and we have this option to run the projects through people who are real recruiters and who take no BS, and they give you, yes, it's working, or no, it's not working, very, in the very straightforward manner. Yeah, so that's what we did, or we're still doing, actually.
This is like, I'm really mind blown by this, because like I was saying earlier, a lot of TA functions are kind of doing a tug of war. There's a battle within the businesses around how they can implement AI, what are the test cases they should be using. And typically when you see, like, even when we implement a new CRM system or an ATS system, recruiters are probably sometimes the last people to actually use the ATS system, and you get in people from different parts of a business to come in and be the decision makers. The fact that you're like using people as the test cases that are actually going to be using this is very, very impressive. The other thing that I find really impressive is that without taking people's jobs away, you're like, implementing bits and pieces that are actually going to make everyone's lives easier. So from the sourcing component side of things, where, like you said, there's a job description, it will read the keywords, and then it will spit out a couple of relevant resumes to the recruiters. What that means for the sourcer is that they probably have a lot more time now to maybe do candidate pipeline management, market insights, do other things that will probably bring more sort of ROI back into the business. Is that right?
Yeah, we want humans to concentrate on the things that only humans can do and do it at the best, to the best of their abilities.
I'm loving this. I'm loving this conversation, Olga. Thank you so much for, that's incredible and so insightful. So thank you.
Thank you. You're very
Last
kind.
one of the second last questions for me is, as we've seen, AI is already making a significant impact and strides in recruitment processes where it can. So when we think about streamlining candidate sourcing, outreach, engagement, enhancing the efficiency of the hiring process, um, this evolution prompts a fascinating consideration, right, beyond just recruitment.
Mhm.
So just it's intriguing to consider its potential impact in other areas within talent management. So I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on how AI might transform other facets of talent management beyond recruitment.
Right. Well, AI is a very powerful tool. Obviously, it's an open secret. So from our workshops, and again, like we're limited in, to the stuff what we do. Recruitment obviously is much wider and wilder altogether. But the other cases where we can definitely see the wins is conversions of resumes, is interview feedback notes, and they know that there are already some products happening in the market, and the meeting notes, and that's what Copilot does. Job postings, referral digests, creation of job descriptions, market research. Yeah, so that's to name a few. But then again, look, I know that, for example, the ATC, we saw heaps of products and heaps of interesting and bold ideas and solutions. Kevin Wheeler was presenting on behalf of the Future of Talent Institute, and yeah, there are some exciting and very scary thoughts conveyed during the presentation. So according to Kevin, for example, if we look at recruitment, screening, admin onboarding of people, of new candidates, can be actually 100% replaced by AI. Moving forward, say reporting and metrics, but that's kind of low hanging fruit. Sourcing 85%. That's what Kevin thinks. Marketing and branding, assessment. 75%. We're still gonna offer candidate jobs and close the deals. Most probably the engagement, again, potentially, humans still have place there in this process. But it's very interesting, and it is a little bit scary. But having said that, look, we just need to evolve as function. We can't just keep getting together and mourning about not having a seat at the table, as has been happening for the last 20 years.
It's scary, but it's definitely exciting at the same time, because there's opportunity. Like you said, we can never lose that human touch. It's always going to be needed in some aspect or the other. So we should be embracing it as much as possible. We need to all be coming to the table within talent and talk about it, and talk about it very openly on what we can and we can't do. And just embrace it, because there's no hiding from it. If anything, this is just going to continue and escalate and get better, right? AI is just going to get better with time. So we need to get better along with it to stay in line with what's happening in the market. Olga, last question from me. It's clear that as technologies are going to continue to evolve, obviously the tools and methodologies we use to evaluate and integrate them into our daily lives and work, we need to obviously make sure that they are fit for purpose as well. Let's talk a little about Gen AI tools for TA. What have you used or seen that's been a game changer for you, or within your team, or outside of TA, or sorry, within TA but outside of your team, that you feel TA teams should be looking at or should be using today?
This, to be honest, it's a bit of a tricky question to me, because we're in a very luxurious, I guess, situation, because we work in, like, we are TA in a tech company, and we have heaps of different tools, which are some are fancy, some are new, others are decommissioning. But I mean, like, what I'm trying to say is that there are, like, sometimes even more tools than we need at times. So a lot of development that is happening, it's like these are internal tools. We are using internal ATS, we're using internal reporting systems, which are quite sophisticated. So sorry, I'm not bragging, I'm just saying that, like, as is. So most probably I will be the worst person to recommend some tools. But what I think is important is, look, it's a hot topic. Obviously, there are people who are taking the whole thing very seriously, and they're very responsible. And there are different situations when maybe half-baked products jump in the market and it's creating a big splash, and it looks very shiny and sexy, etc. But what I think is important to ensure that these tools been properly tested by practitioners, and that's why we are very, I wouldn't say slow. I think we're very responsible at what we do, and we are ensuring that we are not crossing any borders, and we're kind of coloring within lines, and in many aspects, and in legal aspects, in what comes to bias, what comes to actually usage of the tool, and most importantly, that the tool does what it's basically what it promises, or what we hope it's gonna be doing. But I think that there are so many tools in the market, and they might be of different level of maturity. Having said that, I think one of the tools that we're using that have elements of AI is Harizi, and we're loving this tool. It's one of the best tools in terms of sourcing that I think exists in the market. And definitely, I can vouch for this tool anytime, any day. This fantastic tool.
I like the fact that you've mentioned, and it's a very important fact that I think everybody needs to understand here, is that at the scale when you're trying to implement something like AI into your tools, technologies, into the company, even though people are going to be using it, make sure it is fit for purpose. I mean, there's so many Gen AI tools out there. So as much as we all want to, be ahead of the curve and be in line with what the market trends are, we also have to make sure that it's fit for purpose and not just implement things for the sake of implementing it as well.
Yeah.
So the fact that y'all are taking your own time and y'all are being mindful and careful and intentional with what y'all are building, I think that's really important for the success for your team and obviously what EPAM is looking to do as well. Olga, we've come to time, and this has been such a fantastic and insightful information. And I wish you and your team all the best with what you all are looking to do. And hopefully, I'll catch up sometime soon, and we get to hear some updates around what's happening.
Thank you very much, Denise. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I enjoyed every minute. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, and stay crafty. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode, and we'll be back next week with another exciting episode. If you found this valuable, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. That helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Once again, happy sourcing and stay crafty. Until next time.